The rain had just started to fall in a lazy drizzle, coating the windows of the small, charming cafe with streaks of silver. Inside, the smell of freshly ground coffee beans mingled with the soft notes of jazz playing in the background. Regulars were nestled into their usual corners, sipping lattes and typing away on laptops, or chatting quietly over croissants. Then, the soft chime of the front door was drowned out by the sudden whoosh of wind and the sharp click of Italian leather shoes on the wooden floor. Heads turned. A man in an immaculately tailored navy suit and polished shoes stepped inside, shaking off a few raindrops from his silk coat. His face was unmistakable. Roland Graves, the millionaire tech mogul whose face graced business magazines and whose arrogance preceded him like a storm cloud. He barely glanced at the cozy decor or the people inside. Instead, his eyes narrowed as he strode straight toward the counter like he owned the place. "Coffee," he barked, snapping his fingers at the nearest server. "Black, no sugar, and make it better than last time." Emily, a slim young waitress with chestnut hair tied up in a messy bun and a name tag pinned crookedly to her apron, looked up from wiping a table. She had seen rude customers before, but something about this man's entitled presence made the air colder. Still, she smiled with practiced ease. "Of course, sir," she said politely. "One black coffee. I'll bring it right to your table." He didn't thank her. He simply found the cleanest table in the center of the cafe and sat down, taking out his phone, his fingers moving swiftly across the screen like he was programming the next world-changing app. Emily walked behind the counter, her face calm but her eyebrows slightly raised. She ground the beans by hand, measured the water just right, and poured the coffee slowly into a thick ceramic cup. She placed it gently on a tray, adding a small square of dark chocolate beside it, something she did for all guests, even those who didn't deserve it. With a deep breath and a straight spine, she walked it over and placed it in front of him. "Your coffee, sir," she said softly, her tone neutral but firm. He didn't look up, just reached for the cup and took a sip, right before the whole cafe went silent. Roland Graves took that first sip with exaggerated caution, lifting the cup like it might contain poison. The room seemed to hold its breath, as if the regulars could already sense where this was going. He let the liquid sit on his tongue for a moment before dramatically pulling the cup away from his lips, his face twisting into an expression of disgust that bordered on theatrical. "What the hell is this?" he said loudly, waving the cup in the air as if showing it to the jury of shocked customers around him. "This is what you people call coffee?" Emily, still nearby wiping down a neighboring table, paused mid-motion. Her hand slowly lowered the rag to the surface, and her eyes lifted to meet his. "This tastes like you scraped it out of the bottom of an oil drum," he continued, his voice louder now. Conversations died, spoons stopped clinking, and every face in the cafe turned toward the man in the designer suit who had suddenly become the center of a one-man show. "I've had better coffee on airplanes. And those come in plastic cups," he added with a snort, leaning back in his chair as if waiting for someone to agree with him. No one did, but that didn't stop him. He placed the cup down with a loud clatter and scoffed. "If this place was in my portfolio, I'd shut it down tomorrow and replace it with a juice bar or something useful. How are you even still in business?" Behind the counter, the barista froze mid-espresso shot. A mother in the corner reached over and covered her young daughter's ears. Even the old man who always sat by the window with a crossword looked up in stunned silence. Emily took a slow breath, steadying herself. She wasn't new to rude customers, but this wasn't just about taste. This was cruelty dressed up in confidence. And still, she didn't rush her response. Instead, she stepped forward, wiped her hands on her apron, and turned to face the man with eyes that no longer held any trace of the smile she'd greeted him with. Emily stood there for a moment, her gaze locked on the man who had just insulted not only her coffee, but the entire heart of the place she worked so hard to keep warm and welcoming. The cafe was silent, everyone waiting to see what she would do, if she would bite her tongue or walk away. But she didn't do either. Instead, she took a quiet step forward, her voice steady and clear. "Sir," she said, not with anger, but with the calm precision of someone who'd had enough, "that cup of coffee you just insulted. It was made from beans roasted just yesterday by a family-run business 20 miles from here. They've been keeping their farm alive through floods and inflation. Every batch they sell means another day they get to stay open." Her words hung in the air, slicing through the tension like a knife through butter. Roland scoffed, but before he could cut in, she continued, her tone still calm, but colder now. "We grind those beans fresh, every morning. We brew every single cup by hand. Not for tips, not for praise, but because we believe that what we serve matters. Her voice rose slightly, not in volume, but in power. You think money gives you taste, or that you can measure quality with the number of zeros in your bank account. This cafe has been here long before your company even existed. We've served artists, teachers, construction workers, students, all people who know how to treat others with decency, even when they don't like the drink. Around the room, heads nodded. The air had shifted. What was once silent discomfort had turned into growing support. You want to throw around insults like their currency? She asked, her eyebrows lifting just slightly. Fine, but don't expect them to buy you respect. He stared at her, blinking, momentarily caught off guard. It was rare for someone to speak back to him, and rarer still for it to sting. And just so you know, Emily added, her voice lowering just enough to force him to lean forward, it wasn't the coffee that left a bad taste in your mouth. The room remained frozen in stunned quiet, but it was the kind that came just before a thunder of applause. Roland Graves stared at Emily as if someone had just short-circuited his brain. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. For the first time in what was likely years, the man who was used to boardrooms, media interviews, and sycophantic nods, had nothing to say. The entire cafe sat motionless, waiting for his reaction. His jaw clenched. His fingers drummed once on the table before he reached slowly into the inside pocket of his tailored blazer. He pulled out a sleek leather wallet and, with dramatic flair, slid a crisp $100 bill onto the table. Here, he muttered, his tone now stripped of its usual swagger. For your passionate performance. Emily looked at the bill without touching it. Then she looked back at him with the same even calm that had dismantled his arrogance minutes ago. We don't accept tips for insults, she said quietly, pushing the bill back across the table with 2 fingers. But you're welcome to donate it to the farm that grew your coffee, if you can remember how to care about someone other than yourself. A few people chuckled, a few more clapped softly. The tension that had once filled the room had melted into something else now, admiration, even pride. Roland's expression flickered, just briefly, with something almost human. Embarrassment, reflection, it passed quickly. He stood without another word, grabbed his coat, and walked briskly toward the door. The bell chimed as he left, and the black car outside swallowed him whole within seconds. For a moment, the cafe remained still. Then the old man by the window began to clap. One by one, everyone followed. The space filled with applause, not wild or loud, but warm and real. Emily stood there, slightly flushed, but proud. Her manager came out from the back, wide-eyed and grinning. Remind me never to argue with you during staff meetings. That night, a photo of Emily standing behind the counter, with the quote, "We don't accept tips for insults," hand-lettered on a chalkboard beside her, circulated across social media. By morning, the cafe was trending. People came not just for the coffee, but to support a place where dignity was served right alongside the espresso. The cafe didn't just survive after that day, it flourished. And Emily, she never needed to raise her voice to be heard again.